Yeah, let's just start. And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Cipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. And I'm here with one of my two partners, Shane Manila.
Hello, lover.
Thanks. And Jeremy is on a much-needed vacation this week with his family. So, I'm sorry if you heard him say, "Oh, she's cute." That's because he's going through his dating app while we're trying to do a show.
That's a lot of thighs she's showing. I like her.
But because Jeremy's on vacation, we asked a guest to come in and co-host with us tonight. So he is the host of the Dynasty Rewind podcast. He also hosts a Eagles podcast that I know Shane's been a guest on called the Back Row Eagles Show. And you can find him on Twitter at TheMBauer85. It's Michael Bauer.
Hey guys, how you doing tonight? Thank you for having me on. Question for you. Do you think my Twitter handle is narcissistic? That's what the one guy I work with says. He's like, TheMBauer85. Look at you. I'm like, I don't know. It's something different, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think it. What's the 85 part of it?
He's 180.
It's the year I was born.
I thought there was just like that many more before you that like they all died off. You killed them like Highlander.
There was 84 other The M Bowers. So yeah,
I'll tell you what, man. Love doing a podcast with Shane. It's always so much fun.
Yeah, well, you already got to find out the fun part prior to doing the show that we have to deal with getting ready as well.
Because it's so much different behind the curtains. I don't pay attention. I'm checking out a dating app. I'm asking Mike what's up with his wife's girlfriend. Not old Mike, young Mike.
There we go. So you're 85. I'm 68.
I'm never called young Mike, so I'm loving this right now.
If you were born in 85, man, I was born in 68.
Exactly.
You're the way young Mike.
I love you, Mike, old Mike, but I don't want to date any of your wife's girlfriends.
Oh my God. How do you know? You never met him. But listen.
So,
no, come on, that might be fun. They'll give you Werther's originals when you go home.
Oh my God!
True. Thank you, young man. Here's a Werther's original.
First of all, Mike, Shane is not much younger than I am, so I'm not.
You know, a decade is a long time, my friend.
Are you real? You're not 42 years old.
I'm 41, so 11 years.
Holy
bro.
shit, you are? Oh, well,
I will have you know that, and this is if you're not.
I thought you were
just
closer.
So people don't turn us off. We're going to announce Scott Fishbowl winners. But when I met Michael and his lovely family, his wife made me about as happy as I've been in years because she said, "You don't look 40 to me. You look like you're in your 30s." I was like, "Yeah, fucking right." I didn't say that out loud because we were eating dinner and it just seemed.
No, man. You know, in what, like 4 days on Father's Day, it'll also be my birthday, June 21st, and I'll be 52 on Sunday. So
I definitely knew that.
I know you did. Sure. But so listen.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so.
Happy early birthday then.
Thank you so much. But yeah, like Shane said, before we get into everything, we do want to announce the three winners. Oh, that's yeah. Right. Wait, the three winners. That's right.
So Scott Fish being the humanitarian that he is, I kept DMing him, after we announced last week, and even a little bit before that, people had jumped on the Scott Fish Bowl site to see, what our giveaway was. And almost immediately, our DMs started blowing up, which I was really stoked for.
Me too.
But a little sad that I didn't note on the site to please email them. But anyway, so the DMs lit up. And then after the show aired, our emails just blew up with people sending us proof of donations that they had made within the past 30 days. Some of the folks, it's an ongoing thing. Some of the people, they just did it that time. But quite frankly, I don't really care when or why they did it, just that they did it. So I just kept letting Scott know. I'm like, dude, we're at 10, we're at 15, we're at 20, we're at 25. Yeah, we're at 40. Yeah, we're at 50. Yeah, we're at like 57 people like donated. I don't even know what the final count ended up.
Yeah, I think it was around there, 57, 58, I think, yeah.
And I mean, that's in when we air last week, Thursday.
No, I didn't drop it till Friday morning, so it was
and
Friday.
Today is apparently Wednesday.
Yeah,
so
today's
I think
Wednesday.
That's 4 days, right?
Yeah, it was a big success, and unlike some of the other giveaways, like you said, we tied it to charity, so it was really great to have everybody donate the money. So, what did Scott say to you?
So at one point, Scott's like, "Look, let me give you another spot. Like, too many people. This is just too awesome. This is great that people are giving to charity like this." And then at one point, I made an offer that I knew he wouldn't accept. I said, "You know what? How about I just give up my spot too, and then we get 3." You know what I mean? I'll give up my spot, and I'll give it up to one of the people to donate it. And Scott's like, "Well, no, we can't do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, of course not, because then people would just sell their spots left and right."
Exactly.
Real.
Yeah.
So he was just like, "You know what? Let's do 3." And I was like, "Bet." So we got 3 winners. Super excited.
Yeah.
Sorry, we haven't talked about any fantasy football yet, but fantasy football is great. We want to get to the Scott Fish Bowl award winners. 3 people, and it was hard. We had to do a randomizer. I'm not going to lie to you. I did try to choose at one point, and I couldn't, because everyone that sent me one, I was like, "No, this is awesome. This is awesome." So Michael did a randomizer, and without further ado, we have the winners.
Yeah, so we put all the names into a randomizer, we pushed the button, and then our first winner was Lee Cooper. And Lee actually had donated money to the Hawaii Food Bank. So we chose him, and then Shane sent him a message and let him know. And then our second winner was Sean McCormick. And he donated money to the Mr. Mo project for senior dog rescues, where he rescues dogs. And I also talked to Sean too. He has 2 rescue dogs in his house and everything like that. So that was a great one. And he is also one of our patrons, and he came and met us in Canton last year. So that was cool. And then our third one was James Wakefield. And Shane, right. you actually had some conversations with him, right?
Yeah, James. So he started DMing me, and like the very first day after he sent the DM of his proof of his donations, what he gives to, he was like, "If you get a second, check out my site too." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. I'll check out your site." You know what I mean? I put it off for a couple of days just because I was busy. And, I mean, not to be a dick, but whatever. You know what I mean? So I jumped on his site, and I'm like, "Oh, holy shit, this is awesome." So my dude, he runs charity sites, and I joined one immediately. And all the proceeds, or some of the proceeds, go to the My Stuff Bags program. And basically what it is they give bags with things that are useful to neglected and abused children. And like I said, he runs, and I think he said right now there's 18 leagues. And I joined one. I don't even remember how much it was. It was just like immediately, you know what I mean? I was like, all right, it's for charity. It's fantasy football. I can do it. This dude runs it. So it was kind of cool that he ended up on the randomizer. You know what I mean?
And also once you talk to him, we also mentioned him that we would like let everybody know, right? We'll send out a link so people could go to his stuff.
Definitely. And check the site out. It's SSShowdown.com. Yeah, let's pretend I can read.
Cool.
And yeah, it talks about the leagues on there. There's links to the charity and all that, and it's a really cool thing. I feel bad that not everyone could get in, because honestly, just all the great charities that people gave money to is awesome. There's, St. Jude's, ALS. I mean, you name it. There's legal defense funds. Just it's good to know. I hate people for the most part. Like, I legitimately think people are an awful species, but over the last week, it was kind of hard to feel that way.
Yeah.
When people just kept sending proof that they are awesome, and our listeners and the people that donated are frankly just the coolest people in the world. And I'm not even going to lie, I am a little greedy, and part of the reason I did it for charity is it made me feel good. So it was just awesome. And, sorry to all the people that didn't win. Like I said, if we had more spots, I wish I could get everyone in. But really, thank you to everybody that donated to charity.
Yeah, and we're gonna figure out some way, whether it's through our Twitter account or we're not sure exactly, but we want to get the word out there to everybody of all the charities that were donated to, because it really was great to see everything in there. Okay, so listen, like you mentioned before that, we're going to talk some fantasy. And one of the news things that happened today is actually, like I mentioned to you guys in the pre-show, Gone Serious all day, everybody kept talking about it. And I think it's pretty good because we've got two guys here that are both Eagles fans. So, Michael, what did you think about the story?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a non-story. Like, yeah, of course you're going to sit behind the right now better veteran and learn from him. You know what I mean? I don't know why people are making such a big deal out of it. Yeah, you're going to learn from the elder statesman. I think the bigger story is that Brandon Brooks tore his Achilles. So, which is great because people are panic selling Miles Sanders because of it for some reason.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I noticed people like, oh, Miles Sanders' value has crashed because of this. Like, listen, if you're going to sell him cheap, I'm going to buy him cheap every single time. I think he's going to be a fantastic running back. And, the Eagles are smart enough. They have a good enough offensive line coach and offensive system that they're going to, Shane probably re-sign Jason Peters maybe to play guard for a year. Hey, look, I'm okay with him at guard for a year, right?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, look, the guys that, people forget or they weren't alive when he came out of college, but he was an undrafted tight end coming out of college.
Oh, really?
He made a position switch to be arguably the greatest left tackle in the history of football. And if not the greatest, he is certainly within the conversation as soon as it begins. And he would absolutely he's smart. He's still physically dominant. It's weird because we measure Jason Peters against himself. So he might have been really good last year, but then I measure him against the greatest left tackle that's ever played football and go, well, he's not as good as he was. But yeah, if the worst thing that happens is that Peter comes in and plays right guard for a year, we'll be fine. Well, not will. I don't play for the Eagles. The Eagles will be fine. They cut me. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, Michael, we do later on in the show, we do have a trade that involves Miles Sanders that we'll talk about later. But, when you kind of broke up a little bit when you were answering the question, and when you said behind the veteran, you didn't actually, or the listeners didn't actually hear the name, which was Deshaun Jackson. So, Shane.
Sorry about that. I was breaking up.
Yeah, no worries. But Shane, wasn't there? What did you wanted to talk about, Deshaun? Go ahead.
Yeah, so because I guess it would slow anyway, and this is kind of the stuff that you would talk about during the preseason as is. But Jalen Reagor to start the season is going to line up as the Z receiver, which is Deshaun Jackson's position. So everybody was a little saddened and disheartened by that. Couple things. Djax, who I love, is 34 years old and hasn't played a full season, if I remember correctly. Someone can look it up, but I believe since 2014 might be the last time he played a full season.
Really?
Or I might be making that up. That is entirely possible. But either way, I love Djax, but he's an older guy and he's just injury prone. It is what it is. And part of it is that last year the Eagles, they drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second, and then apparently tried to teach him every wide receiver position they could. And instead of him being, kind of a jack of all trades, good at, all three, not great at anything, he was actually terrible at everything. So they decided to go another route with Reagor, let him just, start out behind Deshaun Jackson. But there's no way he doesn't see the field. I mean, he's just too good. He's too talented. He'll be on the field. Alshon Jeffrey's not going to be available probably until October. Greg Ward is a fun little story, but Greg Ward is not a guy that, I know it's a different position, but if I had my druthers, I'd rather see Reagor in the slot than, Ward. And I got a feeling Doug Peterson feels quite the same way.
Shane, I did look it up. The last time Deshaun Jackson played a full 16-game season was 2013.
Wow.
I was off. Yeah, I gave him too much credit. And I love Djax, you know what I mean? Look, he's an elderly gentleman. But,
That's why you love him? Is that why you like me? Is that what you say?
Yeah, I have a soft spot for your old heads.
I only own 3 NFL jerseys, and one of them is Deshaun Jackson. I bought it way back in probably 2014, 13, something like that.
Great receiver, but yeah, like Michael said about Miles, if you can get a discount off of non-news,
yeah,
you best luck. I threw it out in the patron chat. I was just like, hey, if anyone wants to sell Miles Sanders because Brandon Brooks is out for the year, let me know. because you know me, I'm paying above market value. So if I can get any discount, I'm taking it.
Well, I was going to ask you, both of you. I know, Michael, on your Twitter account, you say that you're a Wentz truther, and we all know how much Shane loves Wentz. Are either of you guys concerned with him with that injury?
A little, only because you just lost the best right guard in the league,
right?
Without a doubt, the best right guard. But, and I said it the same thing speaking about Sanders in the Patreon chat, Dynasty Trades HQ Patreon. If you have to lose any position off the offensive line, I think I'd rather lose that than a tackle or the center. Okay. And again, it's not that I'm saying it's great. I'm just saying it's something that you can survive. And I think Wentz will be just A-okay. So if anyone wants to sell him at a discount too, look, send me Sanders, send me Rager, send me Wentz on a package, and you could probably have most of my team.
So what do you think, Michael, about Wentz?
Oh, I think he's fine. I think he's really undervalued as well. People keep saying he's injury prone. I get it. I get the whole thing. 8 games in 4 years, less than Deshaun Watson, less than Big Ben, less than Andy Dalton, less than a bunch of other guys. So he's not as injury prone as people think. He did play all 16 games last year. And as far as the playoff game, if you could take Jadeveon Clowney to the head and still play, then you're a better man than anybody, right? So
yeah, you're not human at that point.
Yeah, people have to realize they're like, oh, he's soft, and it's like, but there's protocols in place. They pull you out of the game. You're not allowed to come back in. They don't let you come back into the game. People don't seem to understand that for some reason.
Yeah, that is true. Well, the other story that we had, which Shane put it as the top story, but I can't stand this guy, was everybody was talking about Kareem Hunt today as well.
Oh, I guess
you're not a Kareem Hunt fan?
Not me. No.
He's got his personal feelings. Yeah, he's in his feelings like Drake. He's all like Kiki over there.
Yep, exactly. Well, yeah, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. What are you going to say, Shane?
Yeah, it's the whole he kicked some John, and he was not excited about that. Which again,
I'm not laughing that he kicked a John. I'm just laughing because you used John.
Do not hit Johns as a man. You do not do that. Oh, I agree with you. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do. That said, what do you call those folks? The OC, Chad O'Shea, was talking about how Kareem Hunt's been involved in some of the virtual passing meetings this offseason, which is that's fun because we know the receiving skills he has. So I'm kind of interested to see how the Browns are going to actually get him on the field. And maybe they'll spread him out wide. Maybe they'll run him out of the slot. Maybe there'll be some 2-back sets where you don't know if Chubb's going to slam it up your throat in the middle, or if Hunt's going to leak out of the back. All that sounds really great to put together.
I was trying not to laugh.
Up the middle and you leak out your back.
Oh my God.
Weekend. Anyway, so yeah, no. I almost kind of feel like. Look, I'm projecting. This could be good for Nick Chubb in a way.
I hope so.
No, come to think of it, I retract that completely. Sell Nick Chubb. Chubb's too high. His ADP is too high. People are forgetting that Kareem Hunt absolutely eviscerated his his fantasy production last year.
How much longer is Kareem Hunt on contract? Is it one more year or?
Yeah, he's got one more year, and then at that point they could hit him with a franchise tag or whatever the one tag you can hit people with now is. But then they'd have to pay him at top 10 at the position. So I doubt that's going to happen. So one more year, but he's going to completely bake Chubb's value and production again this year.
You think so? Do you agree with that, Michael?
You could disagree with me, dude. It's fine.
I don't know. That one's.
I don't think he was considering that. I think he has this delay, Shane. That's what it is.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Plus, Shane has my phone number, so I don't want him to blow me up too much if I disagree with him. I do think Hunt does kind of chip into Chubb's value, but I think Chubb's good enough to overcome that. I still think he could be an RB1 low end with Hunt there, but long term, he doesn't really diminish his value, I don't think.
Yeah.
Aside from this year.
Yeah, long term.
I'm trying to find his ADP right now, actually.
Oh, I just looked it up. It's too high.
Which one, Chubb or Kareem Hunt?
Chubb.
Oh,
Yeah, it just
What
says
is it?
too high.
Oh, perfect.
yeah.
Let me
No.
see if I can find it here.
Oh, what's this?
But while he's looking, yeah, Michael's playing the long game there with the, this year. It's definitely going to eat into Chubb's production because
Yeah.
it did last year. My only concern is maybe the Browns look at this, the new coaching staff looks at this. I'm already projecting Hunt to be successful, so maybe that's me being a little presumptuous. But
What's that word?
Presumptuous. It means to presume.
I know,
before
but the
something
way you
occurs.
said it was funny.
That is the word.
No,
is
I know,
redundant.
but the way he said it was whatever.
Well, first of all, it's hard to say a word that you're not sure is true in Google that quickly, so that it comes up and you verify that it's a word.
Is that why it came out funny?
If I'll tell you what though. So where Michael's looking at it long term, Chubb might be someone that you can buy come like week 7 or 8 when Hunt has just gone off for like a 30-point week and Chubb had a 6-point week. He might be an interesting guy that you should kind of watch during the season to see if you can try to get that discount on.
And that's funny too, because part of the reason when you were saying before that I don't like Kareem Hunt, yeah, it could be the whole John situation, like you say, but also I was a big fan of Chubb, and I had Chubb in a lot of places, and I just hated the fact that he was there, taking away anything. But what you just said about doing a trade, I actually did that. I don't know if you recall, but I did that last year. There was a couple weeks there where Chubb's numbers were down a little bit in Kareem, and I actually got him at a pretty good discount in a trade. I don't remember the exact trade, but I remember we talked about it on the show at the time. So the other story we had was about the Vikings with Justin Jefferson, which I know you like Justin Jefferson. So,
I mean, I think everyone likes Justin Jefferson, right? And just so everyone knows, we pulled all these stories from Roto World. Not that that's probably a shock, but we should probably, acknowledge them, because I think a small, struggling site like that could really use our help.
Well, there is a topic we're going to talk about later in the show that also may promote some things as well. But yeah, that's it. But wait, before you go on to it, you said we all like him. Is that true, Michael? Do you like Justin Jefferson?
Sorry. I have to call my internet provider because this isn't working out so well for me. My router keeps crapping out, the one that I pay a lot of money for, and it's about to go through the window. Real quick, before we talk about Justin Jefferson, I did look up Nick Chubb's ADP. In one quarterback league in a startup, he's at 111. In a super flex, he is 16th overall.
Wow.
So,
okay, cool.
Oof, you are.
Oof. And Miles Sanders is pretty much right on his heels at all times. In a one QB league, he's 112, and he is he's 19th overall in Superflex.
Wow,
so Miles
so
Sanders
he is.
and Nick Chubb are kind of pretty much neck and neck in startup.
Huh.
So
That's interesting. Yeah, normally Shane would be the one who pulls those numbers out of his ass. But so what did you?
It is. I'm not going to lie to you. It is just beautiful to have someone else that knows how to open a tab. It's a beautiful thing. It's
absolutely.
Oh
lot
yeah.
less pressure on me.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Yeah,
Justin
that's exactly what's
Jefferson.
happening. But wait, he didn't answer the Justin Jefferson thing.
Well, real quick, just back to Miles, just on a trade thing. This is a trade show. I don't know if you know nominally.
I know, but we have him on a trade for later in the show. But go ahead.
I was just going to bring up a point. Look, I just wanted to point out, we are a trade show. It's not just a Shane dating show and Shane making fun of Michael's show.
Oh yeah.
And Shane making fun of other Michael's show.
Oh, am I other Michael?
Yeah, and I'm not a part of this at all. It's just the Shane show. We're going to change our whole logo and name of the show and everything.
Me and Michael have already discussed. Young Michael have already discussed this before. But we would both, I think, trade Nick Chubb straight up to get Miles Sanders back 9 days a week.
Okay.
Probably.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I would if I was getting Miles Sanders, I feel like I could probably get Miles Sanders plus because I feel like people are valuing Nick Chubb higher.
Yeah.
And I think they're both quality backs. They're both going to have good careers. But at the end of the day, I do think, and this isn't homerism, this is just, we're talking about, we're having the Eagles going into the season with the same head coach that they did last year, Doug Peterson, I think, is the new offensive coordinator. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator and title is, it's Doug Peterson. Whereas, like the rest of the NFC East and the Browns, coaching change, coordinator change. So, for right now, I do think Miles Sanders is going to have the better season. He's not going to have somebody chipping into his carries like Kareem Hunt's going to do with Nick Chubb. So long term, they're both going to be fine. But we could say maybe Miles Sanders is doing better. The offense, I think, is a little bit better. I'm going to say this is going to piss a lot of people off. I'm glad that Jeremy's not here. I do think Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is great on short and intermediate passes, to be honest with you, but he doesn't have a great deep ball, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So quarterback's better, line's better, defense is better. Division's not as hard. So that could equal more touches for Miles. That could equal more points.
I think out of all three of us, we'll all agree with the Wentz over Baker thing. I don't know about Jeremy if he was here, but
anyone with a pair of eyeballs, except for my delirium last year.
Well, that's. I was just gonna say, I don't know, Michael, if you knew what Shane's rankings were last year with quarterback, but I believe that he had Baker Mayfield at the number one spot.
Well, no, he was definitely one or two. Yeah,
a lot of people really did, and you know what? So, hey, I think I kind of got caught up into the hype, and that's a lesson that I learned last year. And as someone that's in the quote unquote industry, and I'm an analyst, whatever, I'm just a guy that has an expensive microphone and thinks I'm good at talking. At the end of the day is you can't fall into other people's traps, because what's going to happen is you're going to overvalue players that you shouldn't. You need to trust your gut sometimes. Trust the people that you listen to. And if someone seems out of line, just dig into it. You know what I mean? Like, people had Baker Mayfield at quarterback 3, I think, was like the general consensus last year for him, right? Yeah. As I'm wearing a fantasy football roundtable shirt that has Baker Mayfield's number on it. I just want to point that out. So,
with the Eagles championship banner behind you, though, right?
That is true. Yes, that is true. So it's just one of those things. I try not to, like, these second-year guys. So Baker was a second-year player last year. I try not to bump him up too much. It's like, show me a little bit of something first.
Well, you know what? And the great thing about your answer actually will go along with one of the topics we're going to talk about later on in the show. So why don't we finish up the news here? And actually, you didn't answer the question. Do you like Justin Jefferson? Because according to Shane, everybody does.
I kind of forgot what the question was for a while there. We got off track. I love this show just gets off track, and then all of a sudden it's like you flick a light switch and you're back on it. So
that's my job. So
and I give you a lot of credit for hosting the show too.
Thank you.
I do like Justin Jefferson. I think that he's gonna be kind of like a Jarvis Landry. He's gonna be like a steady Eddie. Not saying he is Jarvis Landry. He's gonna be a steady Eddie. I think he has one of the safer floors out of this rookie class. But if you're talking about bigger ceilings, you're going to probably do better with a guy like CeeDee Lamb or even Jalen Reagor or maybe even Bryan Edwards. I love Bryan Edwards, and I love that spot.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson's going to be fine, but and I think he's going to do fine in Minnesota, to be honest with you. Them moving Stephon Diggs is going to be really great for him, especially when Adam Thielen gets hurt and misses half the season again. He's going to really be the only thing there. But he's fine. Although I do have to say, if we're talking about Jefferson, Porkman from the show, Dynasty Rewind that we do, he's huge on Van Jefferson. What do you guys think about Van Jefferson? Because, sorry, Porkman, I know you're probably listening. I don't see it, man.
Let me, real quick, Van Morrison
is Van Jefferson,
underrated singer-songwriters in the history of life. And if you've never heard Crazy Love with Van Morrison and Bob Dylan, live from some Greek island, it is incredible. And yeah, it's a Macropolis or something like that. It's a Opolis. And the reason that Van Jefferson makes me think of Van Morrison is, one, Van. Two, they are roughly the same age.
He is older, yeah.
Oh my God.
He's also an elderly gentleman. I don't remember what the question was.
He asked if you like Van Jefferson. Remember, we actually were on your show, the three of us, me, Shane, and Jeremy, and we did a mock with you guys. And I remember that.
Fun.
Yeah, and I remember he did like Van Jefferson. But yeah, he asked you if you liked Van Jefferson.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I like Van Jefferson's draft capital. I don't like his lack of college production, relative. I don't like his age. I don't like many things about him, but I like that he was drafted into second round, was it?
I think so. Yeah.
We should know this. I feel like as a fantasy football show,
I don't agree. I
Can't
disagree.
remember where everybody gets drafted.
I disagree. I think, first of all, I think you can have your opinions without knowing that stuff, but also you always look it up. I delete all that, and all it sounds is like right away. So go ahead.
No. I prefer this, though, when you leave it in, because it just shows that even when I think I'm wrong, I'm not. Of course I'm not.
No,
Yes,
that is not what it shows.
57th overall. I just looked it up. So, yeah, I'm high on his draft capital. I'm high on the fact that the Rams have put themselves in a position where they can't afford to pay players anymore. Like, legitimately can't. Talk to Todd Gurley and Clay Matthews, I believe it is. Not Clay. He's probably retired.
No, I think he's still looking for work.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's two ex-Rams, Gurley and some other dude that keep tweeting at the Rams like, it's payday.
Where's my money? Yeah.
Have they paid Jalen Ramsey?
No, they have not signed him yet.
Oh, okay, because I'm surprised nobody's signed him. Maybe I should look that up.
No.
That's going to be the title of this episode. Let me look that up.
Yeah, he has not. He has. They haven't re-signed him yet. But anyway, so I liked Van Jefferson's draft capital, and I like the fact that the Rams are nearly forced themselves into a position where Van Jefferson is going to be a starting wide receiver on that roster probably next year. Because I got to be honest with you, I can't imagine that they've re-signed Cooper Kupp and keep Robert Woods. And I think, Van Jefferson's going to be in a good spot in 2021.
The good thing about Van Jefferson also is he doesn't have the same name cachet as the rest of the guys. So you could get him later in these drafts. He's not going in the first 2 rounds of these drafts,
Right.
So you're able to get him late. And if he does pan out the way you're saying, it's going to be a steal for a lot of people. So that'll be pretty cool. Before we get on to the rest of the show, there was one other sad news you wanted to mention.
Incredibly sad news. I think everybody, it feels like, knew Dave Cherney. If you didn't know him on a personal level, even a little bit, you at least know who he was. He was with Fake Pigskin. He was the co-host of the the co-host of the Dynasty Football 101 podcast. I know I've been lucky enough to go on a couple times with him and Ron McLeese, also a great dude, who was Dave's best bud. And just as an aside, if you know Ron, just give a shout out to him and just see how he's doing. Dave was a legitimately awesome guy. I jump on podcasts with him, and me, after an hour, I'm like, I need to go. And, the last podcast I did with him, it was myself, Ron, Dave, and Katie Flower. And it was like 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And honestly, I legitimately had to get off at some point where it was, I had things to do. Yeah. But I didn't want to. And Dave, just on a personal note, was always a great guy. He, as soon as I went out in the world with, letting everyone know that I was going through a separation, Dave would check in on me all the time. Just making sure that I was doing okay, giving me pep talks, just talking about, getting through it, and how to deal with it. And the one sad thing, and, it does make me feel sad, very sad, is a couple weeks back, I was working on an article. And me and Dave were, Facebooking back and forth in between, and Dave's like, hey, give me a call. And I said, I'm finishing this article. I'll get back to you. And I never called him. And, and then I found out he died. And, it's not like to say like me and Dave are best friends in the world, but he was an awesome guy.
Right. And
it's just, it's just one of those things, like you always assume there's going to be another time to tell someone they're awesome, talk to someone, and you're just not. Dave was just a great fucking guy. It's like the best compliment I can give someone. I couldn't tell you anything fantasy wise about him right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like nothing. And if I were to die, I'd hope no one would give a fuck or even think of anything fantasy related. I don't think anything fantasy related when I think of Dave. I think he was a great person, and just very sad that we lost him. But like I said, just take it as a lesson. Just, tomorrow's not promised, and just keep that in mind when you talk to people.
Yeah, it is a really sad story, especially with the way this community is. I've been in it now with you for 4 years, something like that. And it does seem like we all are one big giant family. So no matter whether people have arguments or not, or fight over different players, we all support each other a lot on Twitter. You can see a lot of support with everybody and all the podcasts that we do. So when something happens to somebody in our community, it's very sad. And, I agree with you with talk to people. Sometimes it happens. We all get busy and you don't want to regret anything. So
the other day, I know personally, I made it a point to reach out in a couple ways to people that I knew were going through some things.
Yeah.
And I also made it a point to go into some group pages on Facebook that helped me deal with, the shit I was going through, and kind of just went and looked for a person that was in that similar situation as to me a few months ago, and just said, hey, life gets better. You're going to be okay. Just do something nice, because that's what Dave would have done. And Dave loved fantasy football. So we'll talk about fantasy football the rest of the show now.
Part of what you just said about Dave, when you were talking about his different podcasts and everything, one of the topics we wanted to talk about tonight was Shane this afternoon. Michael, I know we got this group text between the three of us with Shane, where he had come up with an idea. He wanted to talk about how people get their information and how they consume their content for fantasy. So we were going to talk about, between the three of us, how do we get that? And I know, Shane, you, like I said, you came up with the topic. So you want to ask the question, and then let's go about it, seeing what our answers are.
You just asked a goddamn question. You made it like it was yours.
I feel like
George, when Elaine gave the big salad to George's girlfriend.
First of all,
George's girlfriend gave the big salad to Elaine.
But not if you go to Reggie's. If you go to Reggie's, they don't have the big salad. They have two small salads. Yeah. It's not the same.
But anybody who listens to what I said Shane texted all of us and came up with the idea. Then I actually lobbed it over to you to ask the question. But you're right. I did ask it. How do you utilize the content that you consume? So let's answer that question then. How do you... No, let's not do you, Shane. Let's do Michael. Michael, how do you utilize the content that you consume?
Well, thank you for doing me.
Hey, it's Shane. So Mike, he fits right in here,
So primarily podcasts, to be honest with you. I don't read a lot of written articles anymore. It's one of those things where I'm just always on the go, so it's easier to pop in podcast on, if I go for a run. Believe it or not, one of the things I like to go, you guys usually release Thursday, Friday. So by the time I get caught up with other stuff and I go for a run on Saturday morning is usually when I listen to you guys. There's a bunch of podcasts that I listen to, but you guys are definitely in my top three. So again, thank you for having me on. Usually podcasts, YouTube a lot. I watch a lot of film. There's a podcast that I'm friends with, the Fantasy Football Astronauts. Their film cut-ups are fantastic on YouTube. Jetpack Galileo does an amazing job. He doesn't like people knowing his real name either, because he's a doctor in real life. So he tries to keep his personal life and his fantasy life separate, which I think is
pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, so wait, I'm kind of name isn't Jetpack.
It is not, and he is not a 16th century astronomer either.
Oh my god!
For me, it's YouTube and it's podcast. But I will tell you this. And I'm not affiliated with DLF at all, just for the record. They have the best ADP, and they're my go-to for ADP. That's who I looked it up before. And also, to answer a question that we had before, Van Jefferson's ADP in a one-quarterback startup is 29th overall. So
that's pretty cool.
I mean, that's crazy. You're getting a receiver that was drafted in the second round at the 12 plus 12 plus 24.
The third round.
No, let him do it.
The third round. 305-ish of rookie drafts. That's insane to me.
And that works perfect with what I said before. That's where he's going, and it's a great value for him. But, we made a joke at the beginning of the show about that later on in the show when we talk about this topic, it might be an ad for people's stuff. But, if that's the place that you like, whether you support them or not, it's fine to mention it. I think in my whole dynasty career and history or whatever, DLF is actually one of the only sites I've ever paid for. You know, I agree. I like their site, and now our very own.
I subscribe to them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but guys. So I just started writing there. So you're supposed to say, "Oh, as soon as Shane started writing there, I started subscribing."
You interrupted me because I was about to say that. You
didn't. Yeah.
What I was going to say is, I said they were the only ones I ever subscribed to. But then I was going to say, now that our very own Shane is affiliated with their site, I will now definitely go back. What happened to him? He left. He turned his screen into like.
Did he turn off his camera?
I don't know what he did. Oh, there he is. No, but I'll agree with you. For me, it's pretty much podcast mostly. I don't really read too much. Just like when I started with DFF and we did all this stuff, they asked me to write. I said, no, I can't write, but I can talk. So for me, I would rather listen. Shane's shaking his head and laughing.
No righty, me speaking.
Exactly. That was pretty much what I said. The best was when they said, well, you know what you could do? You can speak it and then it'll text right. I was like, no, thanks. But for me, yeah, I like podcasts. I like also the information I consume is from everybody. With Twitter is such a great community, especially with all the people that we talk to and everything. There's so much information and so much answers and people are very ready. They're ready to give you their advice and give you their opinions on stuff. So I really like Twitter in getting news. That's where I get a lot of my news from. You see something on Twitter and then you immediately look it up and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. But, I think that's where I consume most of my content. Videos, there are some, but for me, it's more podcasts and talking on Twitter. And I know, Shane, you had mentioned when we talked about it this afternoon about certain people and certain sites and everything. But with you, we already know you listen to like every podcast that's out there, right?
Yeah. So and again, I have the luxury of, even during my the non-pandemic days.
Yeah.
I have a desk gig and I have to run around, but there's also stretches of the day where I could sit at a desk for an hour and a half straight.
Right. Yeah.
In theory I could, if I didn't have whatever issues I have mentally.
Come back.
Sit in one place and focus that long.
Come back.
Is it okay to laugh at that, Mike? I'm not sure.
It is perfectly fine.
I'm not sure what the protocol is for that.
It's totally legal.
It's perfectly fine. I just have to reel them in sometimes, though, or it'll go the wrong direction. But go ahead.
Okay. So you know what I listen to, not us, because the Philly voices are awful.
But you know what? I don't listen to my podcast either. And here's the thing that sucks. I won't listen to this podcast now. I'm still going to download it because that's what I do. But because I'm on it, I'll hear about 5 seconds of myself talking and go, nope. Can't.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? What's really great about that is Shane and Jeremy don't listen. But because I edit it and it takes me hours, I might listen to it 3 or 4 times every single episode because I have so much to do for it,
I do. Then I did lie because I do go through, and when I take it out of StreamYard and put it in Audacity and add our music, I go through in various points to make sure everybody's level's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably listen to about half the episode I end up listening to it. So
the one great thing when we first started, Shane said to me, I told him, I said, I was happy to do this show with you because just hearing you as guests on show cracked me up. And one of the first times I ever heard Shane on a show, I like spit my Red Bull out while I was driving. It was freaking hilarious. But Shane said, oh really? What show was I on? Like even back then he had no idea what show he was on and he didn't listen to it back. So he didn't even know what I was talking about that I was laughing at. But that's the way it always is with him.
I mean, honestly, if anyone listens to this show, if I've gone on a podcast, I probably enjoy them. Also, I'm a big mouth whore, so I will just go on any podcast. Wait, well, that's what I was told this weekend, that I'm a big mouth whore, and that's what I assume she meant.
Oh, okay. I'm going to cut that just soundbite out because I really like that soundbite.
Yeah.
Can you send that to me, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
So,
maybe that should be your new name, Shane. You change it enough.
In no particular order, obviously, I love Scott Connor. Dynasty and Chill. It's one of my favorite podcasts. Go on and be on. Dynasty Rewind. Actually wearing a shirt tonight.
Looking good, by the way. Look at you.
Yep. Trade Addicts. I love the Fantasy Points podcast when it comes out. It's been a minute. Jesus, I can't even think of all the ones I have. Every super flexible version. If there's a super flexible, the original OG that migrated over to DLF. There's the one that was with DFF that's now an independent brand, Dynasty Warzone. Then I'll also listen to. I love the Roto World pod with Josh Norris and Ian Harttitz.
But the reason I'm laughing is because when you and I talked about this earlier, you said we were going to talk in more generic form, general terms, and you're running down all the different names.
Yeah, I'm like, am I supposed to list all the podcasts?
I know, Michael. We were told differently.
Don't cut them out because I feel bad that I mentioned their names and now we're going to just blank.
Listen, I'm not going to cut it out. I'm not going to cut it out. I'm just steering you back to where we talked about we were going to do this. Yes.
So, what I try to do is I make sure I have a podcast that kind of gets me focused week to week on matchups.
Okay.
But I also want ones that are deep dive, where there's a lot of strategy talk and where you might not even talk about a player that's currently active.
Right.
Because all you're talking about is theory and strategy. I really love those. Those are probably my favorite kind of podcasts. And then content-wise, I am a subscriber to... Well, one I don't have to pay for anymore. Yeah. But I'm a subscriber to probably 8 different websites.
Wow.
Yeah, and it would be more because, before FS Statistics was bought out by DLF, it was those separately. But yeah, so about 8 different ones. And, I kind of compartmentalize. I realize not every site is going to always be great, and the content on it is not always going to be what I'm looking for. But most sites, at least the ones that I frequent, not all sites, but the sites I frequent, I find that, all right, this is what I'm looking for out of you. Like one, I might be looking for specific tools. I'm like, all right, well, I can use this. While others, and I hate to keep counting DLF because people are going to be like, oh, it's because you're right there. You didn't mention them before. Well, I didn't mention them before because I ran another site.
Okay, come back.
Anyway, but a site like that where there is that kind of like, all right, these are the players you should buy. But then there's also these articles that dive into, well, this is when you should buy players, not who exactly, but like when and why. And these are the types. Like I love strategy and theory, I think is my favorite content.
And it's funny. I know I mentioned back before that pretty much DLF was the only one that I ever paid for, but that is actually wrong. I have actually paid for a couple others, and I realized it when you were just saying that. One of the ones I did do for a while was 4for4, and the main reason I did it, like you just said about specific content, Mike Wohlert is one of the first people I ever talked to and met in the Dynasty community for IDP. And he has always been the go-to guy for me with IDP stuff. So I know what you're saying, where I had that website specifically for that information. Not that I didn't use the other information, but that was the main reason. But I see, like we talked about it this afternoon.
Wait, real quick.
What?
So here's the other thing. As far as podcasts, that I get a little... So there's some that I like that are a little dry, right?
Yes, we've talked about this before.
Okay. I can't listen to 8 podcasts in a row that are dry because I'll want to end myself. Not to make light of that, I apologize.
Yes.
I'll want to not listen to podcasts any further. So then I will mix in podcasts that even if maybe the knowledge that they're imparting to me isn't imparting.
No, let him go. Let him go. It's fine.
The information that I'm downloading from those podcasts.
It's all good, Michael. It's good. Let him go.
The information I'm downloading from those podcasts might not be something that I don't already know, but the entertainment level of it is so good that it goes, okay, this is good. Like, yeah, whatever. Maybe it's not rocket science, but it makes me happy to listen to, like the reason you listen to music and things.
Well,
and then I try to get a mix. I will try to get a mix of, like I said, the bigger types, like the Roto Worlds, and then the smaller guys, like our you know what I mean? Because I feel like there's a certain grind that's done by guys at our level and lower that, it's a personal grind. You can't just go, hey, I need this information, stats and information, get it for me.
Yeah.
Do it ourselves, man.
Exactly. Like that. I respect the out of that, especially in same why I love content is because I understand the grind where it goes. I just wrote 300 words and it took me 6 hours because I had to go to 17 different websites to verify what I was saying, these numbers. So I just, I respect the grind. I love it because I know people that are grinding or working at it, they love it and they're not just spitting bullshit.
See, for you have a different perspective because you had to deal with that way. And I know when you say the entertainment value, 2.5, almost 3 years ago, when you and Jeremy and I first talked about doing the show, we had certain ideas that we wanted to do with the show. And to me, I always thought that entertainment value was one of the most important parts. Granted, yes, all the information is great and the way it's presented, I think is more important. At least it worked for us. We've been doing this now for 2.5 years. People seem to like it. And I think we have fun with it. And at the same time, we also give out the information. So I understand what you're saying about that. And I think everybody has their own opinion of what they are willing to listen to. And the one thing that I think is funny, and I don't know about the two of you, I actually have never asked Shane this, but I've heard other people say it. One thing I see with people that listen to multiple podcasts, they talk about listening to it at like 1.5 and 2 times speed. And I see Michael shaking his head. I tried it once and I was like, I can't do it. And I don't understand how some people can listen to it that fast.
So what I found is at one point I would pump it up to like 1.3, 1.4, right?
Uh-huh.
But then I'd end up going back because people would be talking too fast and I'd miss something and I'd go, wait a minute. That sounded interesting. What was he talking about? Let me go back. Or she. Or I didn't hear the name of the player and I'm like, well, now I got to go back anyway.
That's funny.
Yeah. 1.2 is the fastest I can go because after that, then it starts to blur past. Most podcasts I'll listen at 1.1, which is basically normal speed, but because I'm up in the brain, it makes me feel like I'm saving time.
I was just gonna say that is so psychological. Then if you're listening to 1.1,
I did the math before. I think I looked at it. It saved me like 3 minutes of a 55-minute podcast. So it's really not saving me any time. But whatever, it makes me feel better.
So Michael, why were you shaking your head no? What were you gonna say?
I can't do it, and part of the problem is with me, generally, when I'm hosting the Dynasty Rewind, I talk pretty quick because we've got 4 people on the show trying to get everything in that we want. When I do our read through for our sponsor, I try to do that pretty quick because one thing that I've found, and you guys don't do this, which I really appreciate, I don't like when a podcast opens, the song's too long, then there's a commercial, then, hey, it's so-and-so, and we're going to talk about this. But first we're going to talk about, and it's like, okay, so I'm 6 minutes into this podcast, and I got nothing. And, so it's one of those things, like, I understand that everybody's time is precious, so I try to keep things rolling along as best I can. But for me, like, podcasts are kind of relaxing, so I like to play them at normal speed. I have too much going on that's fast-paced at work, and I have a toddler that is very fast-paced right now, so for me to be able to slow things down and do things at a normal pace is like a huge release. Also, it would be really nice if I could use the bathroom without having someone clapping while watching me. That's an interesting thing about having a toddler too. So he's got to be in there.
That is pretty
in there like this, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing it. That's great. How'd you get in here? I think my wife lets her in now. She thinks it's funny.
That is pretty funny. I think what you just said, I never really thought about it, but in my mind, the way my life always is, it's very fast paced too. So I don't know that I could handle it too fast either. One thing you mentioned about the ads, Shane and Jeremy and I, we were very happy when we became our own independent thing. We were like very happy we didn't have to do some of the ads that we were doing before. But I do know what you mean, especially when people front load the show with the ads. It's very difficult for people to stick with it. But All right, so we did have some trades that we wanted to go through, Michael, and we're very appreciative that you're here tonight. So what we're going to do is
happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. We're going to do a trade. Actually, we'll go back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show when we talked about Miles Sanders, and we'll do a couple trades, and then we're going to wrap it up and then do the Patreon show, and we'll do the rest of Shane's trades in the Patreon show. Does that work for you guys?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just assume that they're my fucking trades. But sure.
because usually they are, Shane.
Well,
so
I mean,
so
yeah.
Listen, I'm just joking, but whatever. But all right, so let's circle back to the beginning where we were talking about the Eagles and we were talking about Miles Sanders. And Shane, why don't you talk about this trade that you have with Miles Sanders?
All right. So in this trade, just in case anyone was wondering, was made before Brandon Brooks decimated it was his Achilles, right?
His other Achilles.
So yeah, this is 2 out of the last 3 years he's ruptured an Achilles, which is not great. Not great.
Yeah. He's a big dude.
Yes. I mean, when he ruptured it, in the playoff game, he was ready to play 5 months later. So I expect him to be on the field in week 9.
All right, I'm down with that. I'm down.
All right, so this is in the HQ4 Listener League. I believe everyone knows the settings. Let's just say super deep rosters, super deep.
Is this the
starters.
auction one?
Probably, I don't know.
Okay.
I will go with maybe. Well, it's a strong maybe. So on one side we have Mr. Sanders, and on the other we have DeAndre Swift and Paris Campbell.
Okay.
How you feeling about that?
So, which side is which? So people always ask me to evaluate trades, and I always ask for a little more detail. But I'm just going to go with what's here. Paris Campbell, while I think he's promising, was hurt last year, and then when he got back, he got hurt again. They did draft Michael Pittman Jr., who I'm super high on. DeAndre Swift, I like him a lot, but he's not a dog. I'm probably going to take the Miles Sanders side here, but I think whoever got Miles Sanders, and I'm not sure, it doesn't say who's what here, or well, maybe I'm just not looking at it right. Probably could have gotten Miles Sanders and maybe like a later 2021 pick or something like that. But yeah, I'd go Miles Sanders though, because you can find another DeAndre Swift. Probably going to get crucified for that, but you could find another Paris Campbell too. These guys are always getting drafted, whereas I do think Miles Sanders is a unique talent, and that's not just me being an Eagles fan and a Penn State fan.
So here's some fun. Michael really went to town on the scoring on this league. There is half-point rushing and half-point receiving first down scoring. There is length scoring for touchdowns. Anything over length of receiving touchdown, well, that never matters.
First of all,
that is incorrect. Length of receiving touchdowns, 40 yards is 2 points.
First of all, wait. When you said Mike went to town on the scoring, this was HQ4 and HQ5, and we wanted to do a couple different things with these two leagues than the other leagues.
So, yeah, we went absolutely ape shit in this league. Rushing attempts, it's a 0.1 PPC.
Right.
There is a long rushing scoring, 40-plus yards, you get another point. This league is going to be bananas. And I can't wait to play it immediately.
I know. We have 5, Michael, by the way, we have 5 listener leagues, and 3 of them we created this off season. And when we did it, I just wanted to add some interesting different things into it. So we added some things that weren't in HQ1 and 2. And
it's a slight tight end premium also with rushing and receiving first downs and distance plays and distance scoring. So holy shit, the scoring is going to be bananas. Just so you know, settings on the starting settings on this are start 2 to 6 running backs and 2 to 6 wide receivers. And of course it's super flex because that's all we do.
And it's funny too because Michael, when we did HQ1, which was our first listener league, we hadn't done one yet, so we kind of went 16 teams because we had a lot of people and we did all this stuff, and it was very difficult. And then we've changed over a couple of the different ones, but I think with this HQ4, I think it's going to be fun, like you said, Shane, with the different scoring things. And I believe that with this trade, I agree with you, Michael. I think I like the Sanders side because Paris Campbell, whatever. But you're right with DeAndre Swift. The one thing we've talked about, I don't know how you feel. I think we mentioned it on your show when we were guests, but I think everybody right now has such high expectations with all the rookies in this class that they believe that the rookies are going to be better than the veterans that are out there right now. So there's a lot of these
Not
kind
necessarily.
of but that's the perception that people are having. Like we even talked about it a couple weeks ago. Somebody had traded Amari Cooper for CeeDee Lamb straight up is what the trade was. And Michael's head just went backwards and came back at it, you know.
Someone's setting off fireworks outside.
But it just there really is this giant expectation with this entire rookie class, and I think if you can get a deal like this done, I like the deal as well. Shane, so you got Miles Sanders, I'm assuming, correct? Because there's no way you traded him for those two pieces.
Yeah, I've been captain, give me all the miles that I can take
Exactly.
up the middle, Tom leaking out of the back to get Miles Sanders.
I think that's going to be the name of the episode: up the middle and leaking out the back. You've said it 3 times now.
Yeah, you know, we went back and forth a little bit, and at one point, you know, he tried to get Brandon Ayuk from me, and I was offering a third on the others, or excuse me, he was off. Nope. Yeah, I was offering like Swift and Brandon Ayuk for Sanders and a third, which he didn't take. But you know, I guess that's preference at that point. To me, I'm good with Ayuk or Campbell. I still like Campbell. And, you know, I like Ayuk, but I clearly would have given him up. I'm pretty deep at wide receiver in that league. Just a lot of younger wide receivers.
Yeah.
Running back, not quite as deep in the sense that I only had maybe 3 guys on a weekly basis that I'd roll out where I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So, and I'm a Miles Sanders stan. So, you know, my theory, I'm willing to overpay a little bit. But it was funny when we brought it up in the HQ the HQ Dynasty Trades HQ patron group me joined today. No one really seemed to think it was an overpay, which is funny because when I put it in there, I assumed everybody was going to be like, "Oh, Shane," you know what I mean? But everybody seemed to be okay with that price.
Yeah, I don't think it's an overpay either. I'm actually very comfortable with the payment that you made, but you also know my stance on these rookies anyways, so
they don't exist, they're not real.
Not that they don't exist, it's just that I will take the veteran over those guys. But so listen, we do have a bunch of more trades, but let's move them all to the Patreon show. Let's wrap this up. Michael, it's been awesome having you here.
Great to be here.
And we would love for you to come back. And, you know, if Jeremy goes on vacation again or whatever, we would love to have you again.
Or whatever. I gotta throw that out.
Look, with the fact that you just said or whatever, now Jeremy's going to get, what does that mean? And I'm going to get a lot of shit from him.
I just amplified what you said. But anyway, Michael was saying.
If you want me to come back while he's here and tell him how I think Carson Wentz is better than Baker Mayfield, I will gladly have that conversation with him all day.
Let's do that. And let's not have Shane mention that I said or whatever. But
see, I was fine with inviting Michael back again with Jeremy. I didn't know you wanted to replace Jeremy with Michael.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God, no. All right, so listen. Oh God. All right, so hey, Michael, thank you so much. Go ahead and tell everybody, even though I mentioned at the beginning of the show, tell everybody all the different things that they can find you at.
So you could find me on Twitter at TheMBauer85. I host the Dynasty Rewind. We record every Friday night. We live stream on YouTube at 10 o'clock. If for whatever reason you want to see what we look like or what the inside of our houses look like too, I guess if you want to think of it that way. I do an Eagles show, although I am due to do an episode. Shane, maybe you can hop on and do an episode with me because I got nothing right now, dude.
Mike,
we'll just talk.
That's going to depend upon Jenna hooking it up with her girlfriend.
Okay, well I'll see what I can do with that.
Pro quo, mother.
Okay, I love how the whole show circles back to the beginning of him dating with the wife's girlfriend.
So we'll see what we can do there. Maybe we could get another episode out. You can follow that at backrow_birds. I don't tweet a lot aside from on that account anyway. Just follow the Dynasty Rewind. Just go there. I don't do much on my personal account. I mean, if you message me or tag me in something, I will respond to you. But I don't.
No, he won't.
What do you mean? No, he won't. All right,
You
Shane.
have my phone number. I just text you. That's how that works.
Be quiet, Shane. So listen, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Check us out at Dynasty Trades HQ on Twitter. You can also find us on iTunes and Podbean and everywhere else at Dynasty Trades HQ. Hey, congratulations to all the three winners. It's so cool that we were able to give away 3 spots in the Scott Fish Bowl 10. And we're going to now do a Patreon show. So everybody, if you want to hear what we're going to talk about, go out and join our Patreon account. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Say goodbye, Shane.
Oh my God. Shit.
Goodbye.
You weren't saying anything.
Good night.